It's Charter California edition. I'm Brad Pomerantz. We are joined today by Vincent McCoy. He is with the Inland Empire Small Business Development Center. We are in Victorville today, part of our roadshow throughout the state of California. When I hear the words Inland Empire, I smile. I think about what a beautiful community the entire region is. I think about how it's growing, but I also think about the tough times the Inland Empire faced in the earlier part of this decade. Sir, you were here. You were in ground zero of the foreclosure crisis here in the Victor Valley. Talk to us about it. What was it like? What were you remembering?
What I was struck by was the impact that the loss of equity in housing had in people who had businesses. As an example, we had a client who was opening a business. He had borrowed some money to buy his building for his business, and he had 2 properties that he owned residentially.
And was he borrowing against his home?
Well, that was his attempt. He had borrowed against his home, and then the collapse came.
Right.
So we ended up taking him to an attorney to show him that despite all these assets, he was basically $850,000 in the hole. Oh. And he was trying to launch a business, and the attorney told him, "You're never going to recover." And those are the kinds of impacts that we've seen, and I've heard estimates that when the housing crisis hit, this region lost about $80 billion in equity.
Can I tell you, I remember, I've talked about this before, a few years ago, maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, the Los Angeles Times did an expose, I'll call it, on Hesperia. And it talked about housing values in Hesperia and how there were homes that before the crisis were valued at $500,000.
Yes.
Within a year, they were down to $125,000. And to say people were upside down, that could only be described as an understatement. And you would go into these developments that had broken ground, and maybe on a street of 10, maybe one house would be done and someone's living in it. I mean, that's where you were living. I mean, I don't know if Hesperia specifically, but
actually,
this is your
I do live in Hesperia,
so you know.
And as I would drive from my home down to Riverside or Ontario to those 2 offices, I would pass a neighborhood which had been started and had been stopped, and to this day, I think they've only had one house in 6, 7 years.
Literal ghost towns.
Yeah.
And I drove through portions of, I guess it's West Victorville, and near the train station, and still all boarded up. I mean, these businesses are all boarded up.
Yes.
But we're bouncing back. Do you feel that?
Yes,
Vincent?
we are. It is a little slower here when you move away from the coast, no matter where you are in California. The further you move inland, it's slower. The impact has been harsher, and the recovery tends to be slower.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned inland California because, you know, it feels like communities kind of have their day in the sun, metaphorically speaking. And, you know, Orange County kind of took off in the 80s, in the 90s, and the 2000s. It felt like it was the Inland Empire's turn to take off. A lot of folks were starting to move from LA County, Orange County. But then this recession hit, and just as the takeoff was, you know, you were just about to take off.
Yes.
And it just the bottom was taken out from under you.
Yes, the growth that was projected at the time in 2008 was going to take that gap in terms of the values of real estate and the Inland Empire, and we were really close to what was taking place in Orange County and the other coastal counties. But when that hit, that separation became again.
So where are we today? For the homes, for example, that were $500,000 that dropped to $125,000, where are they today?
They're probably 10 to 20% of what someone might have bought them for in, say, 2005, 2000. So they've increased.
So maybe they're 200,000 maybe?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's a bounce back. So let's talk about what you do then. Because you and your staff is integral in trying to help this region claw its way back, and I know it is.
Yes.
I know it is. I've been around. I see it.
Yes.
I see the activity. What are you doing? What have you been doing?
What we do at the Small Business Development Center is essentially 3 things. We
Yes.
provide small business with confidential, no-cost consulting services. So a business brings a problem or an opportunity to the table, and we talk them through. We provide guidance. We provide them resources. We provide them the tool to help them realize that opportunity or overcome that challenge.
I just think about how much money they're saving by going to experts like yourself. I mean, if they went to a consulting firm, they went to McKinsey or something, I mean, this is hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you're giving them that advice for free.
Yes, as an example, we have a certified QuickBooks Pro advisor on staff. He's certified in 6 modules of QuickBooks, so pretty much anything anybody would need.
Right.
We have someone who has expertise in that. He provides that service for free. As a minimum, if you want to market, you'd probably pay at least $200 an hour for his services.
Okay, so that's the first. Second, what do you do?
Second one is we train. We provide people with group settings. We talk about business topics that are relevant, such as how to start in one end of the spectrum to more advanced topics like how to do business with federal, state, and local agencies, how to get certifications to do government contracts. And we provide those workshops primarily at no cost, but at the high end, it's probably $25 for a workshop.
That's break the bank. $25, not $2,500. $2,500.
Yes.
And the third thing.
And the third thing is connecting business owners with resources, people, and organizations they need. What we've learned is that most business owners don't know what they need to know.
They don't know what they don't know.
And they don't know what they don't know. And as a result, they make a lot of mistakes. In fact, before I came here, I was talking to a gentleman who wanted to open a restaurant in the Banning-Beaumont area. And he was prepared to jump into a lease first. Oof. And what we know is people sign leases and maybe it's 3, 6, or 9, or 12 months before they're actually starting to generate revenue. So why would you pay on that space? So he thinks the location is the key, but we tell him the key is get the business in order, get a plan in place, get your financing lined up, then go start spending money instead of spending it first.
Now the SBDC, it's a model that's up and down the state.
Yes.
And throughout the nation as well?
Yes. There are 1,100 SBDCs across the country and 34 centers in the state of California.
So talk to us about what's unique about the SBDC in this region. I mean, we've hinted at it, but obviously each area has its own special quirks. I've interviewed some of your counterparts in Stanislaus County. You know, they have their quirks, an ag area, they are facing their challenges. San Luis Obispo County, they have their quirks, you know, inflated home values,
yes,
expensive communities. So what do you see going on here, and how do you offer that unique, specific, particular advice?
One of the ways that we are different than most of the SBDCs, and this is from my conversation with other directors, is that we have contracts with 10 cities. So with those 10 city contracts, we go to those communities, provide someone either on a part-time basis who's focused on what those needs are for that particular community. For example, we have someone in the Temecula area, in Murrieta, and the things that he's doing are a bit different than Louisa, who works here in the high desert.
Of course.
And then it's different than what Robert faces in the high end.
Oh, I mean, think of Inland Empire. I mean, that's the Coachella Valley, that's Riverside. I mean, even from Riverside City to San Bernardino City, 20 minutes apart, completely different cities and different challenges.
Yes, and our SBDC, another thing is, if you take our service territory, San Bernardino County is the largest county in the U.S. So take that and then add Riverside County, which is, I think, the 10th largest county in the U.S. We have the largest service territory of any SBDC in the country.
Those two counties have over 4 million people.
Yes.
There are states with less than 4 million people.
Yeah, I think we're the 26th largest state.
It would be a state. What I've learned is that when you say small business, that doesn't mean mom and pop, 10 people.
No.
Small business has a large definition.
Yes.
How large?
The SBA definition is up to 499 employees. And
think about that, Vincent. I mean, that's almost 500 employees. To me, that's a big business. And the reason I laugh a bit is that shows that you're there for so many different types of businesses.
Yeah. While that definition is in place, the reality is most of our clients are under 100 employees.
Even that.
But that's still a pretty good
big
business.
I mean, that's a real business.
Yes.
Those are real families relying on real paychecks to get real health care. I mean, it matters. It really matters. For those of our viewers who are in the Inland Empire, how can we access you? How can we access your services?
It's our phone number is pretty easy to remember.
We'll put it on the screen.
It's 951-781-2345.
Easy.
Then our website is www.iesmallbusiness.com.
Okay.
And if you go to our website, you'll get
all the information.
All the information.
I want to thank you for joining us. His name is Vincent McCoy. He is the director of the Inland Empire Small Business Development Center. We're in Victorville today. It's Southern California edition.